It is another brand new edition of Flyers Daily, the All-Star Bye Week. Flyers Daily, as always, presented by Ticketmaster. Make more memories live. And joining us on this episode, well, I've been trying to get him to come on all year. Finally, he comes on. His former Flyers goaltender, Brian Boucher, currently of the NHL and TNT and part of the Flyers broadcast crew on television. What's going on, Bouch?
Not much. Recovering from that alumni game. Soreness is getting out of my body now, so I'm glad I got through that relatively unscathed, which is nice. There was a lot of anxiety in my life leading up to that game. Reading those promos leading up to it, man, it was making me nervous. So glad we got a win, and glad nobody got hurt. It was great.
Yeah, the funny thing is, like leading into it, like you're building it up, and you're reading these promos, and you're going, geez, and I got to play in this damn thing, and I'm the goalie.
I told the fans when we met them before the game, I said, hey, you guys got to lower your expectations here. Make sure. I didn't want them to get disappointed when we put our gear on and go play. Yeah. I think they saw the pace right away. I think their expectations hit the floor,
You watch it, you go, wow, this looks different.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Was day 2 the hardest sore day? Like the day after, it's like, okay, I'm sore, but then day 2, you wake up, you're like, oh my God.
Yeah, for sure. So, right after the next day, we had the afternoon game against the Bruins, right? The Flyers did.
Yeah.
You feel a little sore, but it was the next day that I was really sore. To be honest with you, I probably went down a few too many times in the morning skate.
Yeah.
That's the morning skate plus the game. It's not that. I mean, look, I played 30 minutes, right, running time, so it wasn't like I played a ton. But I don't know, it's just the whole process. You're not used to that. So yeah, 2 days later, I was sore. I slept like a baby a couple nights later, and I'm finally starting to get on the other side of it, feeling good again.
Yeah. Well, are you going to keep playing now? Now that you knocked a little scar tissue out of the way?
Nope.
No?
Nope. I'm done. Well, listen. I mean, I when I was living in Rhode Island the last couple of years, I skated there, but I don't have. We're just so busy now with the Flyers and TNT. I'm way busier than I've ever been, so there really is no time to skate. We squeezed a couple in prior to the alumni game just to get ready because I didn't want to go out there cold turkey, having not played in over a year and a half. But yeah, no, I have no plans to go back on the ice. That's for sure.
I told you took too much in warm up.
Yeah.
When I was in my later years playing, just before I stopped playing a couple of years ago, just in beer league, I would take 3 shots in warm up. I'm like, I'm not wasting any energy on that.
Yeah, I should have taken that advice. I took way too many in the morning skate, and I actually took a nap. I felt like I was a player again. And how about a thank you to the fans? 13,000 fans plus showed up to watch a bunch of washed up has-beens. For some of us, never were to play. I mean, the fans were unbelievable. They made us feel like we were. I felt like we were playing again. Like once you hop onto that Wells Fargo Center ice and you see the crowd and the play starts to develop, it brings you back to when you were a player. I know it was a heck of a lot slower, but the fans and the way that they greeted us and cheered for us, amazing, unbelievable fans here in Philly. Thank you to all those people.
I've called a bunch of the alumni games over the years, and it was the most entertaining game. And it was like sometimes the script is written in the gods because it's all for, Recky's induction into the Hall of Fame weekend. Obviously he scores twice, a signature goal in the off wing, snapping one, high blocker. I guess it was high glove.
High glove, yeah, because he was right in it. Yeah, right.
Yeah. Right. And then, the synergy with the number 8, 88 gets one, 87 gets one, 18 gets a shorty. It's like, what is going on here? This is like written in the gods.
I know. It was, listen, I don't think, I mean, unbeknownst to me, I don't think that there is it's not like the WWE where we scripted out who's going to win and whatnot. I mean, I think you saw at the start, everybody's pretty respectful and kind and nice. And then as the game gets going and you get into it, the competitive juices start flowing a little bit and you start testing the boundaries. And it was good to see Rex score. It was great to see Big E score. Mike Richards, still looks like he could play. Sharpie looks like he could play. Sharpie looks like he could do a lot of things.
Looks like he can do anything he wants.
Exactly. Just slap him in the face. You know what I mean? He's so talented at everything. But yeah, it was fun. I mean, and I thought it played out great. It was just a wonderful evening to get everybody back, and also to be around the cup-winning teams. Right, 50 years celebrating them. Those guys are such legends, and we as ex-Flyers look up to those guys and what they did. We tried to do what they did. We couldn't do it. And it's just great that we could get them all in one spot and celebrate them and celebrate Rex, who was a great Flyer. I know he was great in other places, but I still look at Rex as a Flyer.
10
I don't
years
care.
Here.
Yeah, I don't. Yep. To me, when I think of Mark Recchi, I think of him. I know he won cups elsewhere, whatever. Great for him, but I look at him as a Flyer. Just like I look at Rick Tocchet as a Flyer. I look at Craig Berube as a Flyer. They're just certain people that, when you think of them, that Flyers jersey is what you remember them in.
I said on the broadcast that Patrick Sharp is the ultimate example of not all men are created equal. I thought it was incredibly respectful what the Bruins players, alumni players, did too when the cup-winning team was walking off the ice.
Yeah.
They beat Boston and, shook everybody's hand. It was just like the ultimate night of hockey respect, which I thought was really cool.
Yeah.
How's the new gig been? Working with JJ now, the NHL and TNT. You got 2 new gigs.
Yeah, everything's been great, man. I'm truly blessed. The Flyers situation that arose when Jonesy got the president's job really just got my mind thinking in a different direction. I never anticipated a team job, like covering a team. And I got to tell you, it's been a lot of fun. The national stuff is great because it's such high visibility, and you get the best games, the best matchups. You go into the playoffs, and you get to do Stanley Cup Finals and whatnot, and all that's great. But the thing that you miss is cheering for a team. You miss being a part of a team, and it's not to say that we are, the part of the Philadelphia Flyers. JJ and I, because we're not. We work for NBC Sports Philadelphia, but we do have a rooting interest for the Flyers, right? And
you're invested.
Yeah. And so, when you get on that plane after a game, you want those guys to be smiling. Everybody likes happy people. So they've gotten off to a great start in the first half of the season. It's been a lot of fun. It's been great to be around the team. And the TNT gig has been awesome, too, because I'm back with old teammates and Eddie Olczyk and Kenny Albert. So that has been great. I used to be with those guys at NBC Sports, and I miss them, and they're terrific teammates, and I think all that is just it's been great. And look, I'm grateful for the opportunity I had at ESPN. It's just with the schedule, with the team, Flyers games being primarily Tuesday, Thursday, and ESPN schedule being Tuesday, Thursday heavy, it was going to be virtually impossible to do both of those at the same time. So fortunate that the TNT gig had opened up, they had interest, and that ESPN was willing to let me go there. It's been a home run for me.
Is there a nicer national broadcaster than Kenny Albert, by the way? He is like the greatest. He's such a good guy, and he's so damn good at his job.
Oh my God, the guy is a savant. Yeah, I mean, it's amazing all the sports he does at the same time. And you're right, he is the nicest guy. All he does is chuckle. He just loves to laugh. He loves stories. He loves hanging out. Never has a bad word to say about anybody. I mean, my goodness, he's like the nicest guy in the world. He and Doc Emmerich might be the 2 nicest gentlemen I've ever met in hockey.
Yeah, true gentleman too. That's the great part about it. Bouch, what has surprised you about this year's team? Because you just mentioned they're off to a start that a lot of us maybe didn't expect. We thought maybe they would defend better. Maybe they get better goaltending. I don't know if any of us saw this high-flying transition offense where that was not the case last year. But what's been the biggest differences for you, and why the success has followed?
I think that's it. I think the pace that they play with, like as far as transitioning from defense to offense, that has surprised me. And Torts kind of alluded to it at the start of the year. He talked about last year being a year to lay down the foundation, right? Kind of create a culture, maybe weed out some people that he felt didn't fit into the long-term plans of the team, and learn how to defend, learn how to play hard. And now this year was about finding ways to create more offense. And I got to be honest. I mean, I never envisioned a team that would be as fast as they are, and transition the puck the way that they do. And maybe at the start of the year when you can catch teams a little surprised because they're not ready for you, you get that success. And I think that's been the case for the Flyers in the first half of the season. I think teams were not ready for it. And if you get on the wrong side of it in a 60-minute game, it's hard to, you chase it a little bit. And I think for the Flyers, they've had some success. And I will say this, I mean, their goals for, it's under 3, right? But I feel like there are games where they get a lot of chances. And had they had the finish, and certain guys are shooting percentages down, had they had guys that were able to finish regularly, their goals against would be higher, because I feel like they do generate chances, particularly off the rush. So yeah, that's been a surprise for me, and it's been a big reason for their success. And as far as the defending part of it, like Torts has talked about, he's like working hard and blocking shots and being tough to play against. These are non-negotiable things. It's what is expected of you as a professional. And I just think they've carried that over from last year and have done a great job. Their PK has been great. Their goaltending has been good. And they've defended the way they've needed to defend to give their goalies a chance. And that's why they've stayed in games. So, but the goal scoring, there's no doubt, and the way that they get goals and generate has been surprising.
You don't get bonus points for defending or blocking shots. It's expected of you. And I think Torts has set that self-accountability to a different level in year 2, even more so than year 1. Bush, what is it like for a goaltender when a team is coming so fast in transition and your team doesn't have a chance to get into its structure? Is it just less predictability for the goaltender and, the other team not kind of trying to dictate the terms defending in some way, shape, or form?
Yeah, I mean, if you're facing odd mans all night long, it's like you're playing with fire. Whether it's 2-on-1s, 3-on-2s, or breakaways, I mean, those are nightmares for goalies. And you can try your best to hold the fort as long as possible, but if you continually get those chances, eventually it's going to lead to either goals against or penalties that have to be taken. And then you got to, so it just takes away from the way a team wants to play. It's an uncomfortable game for a goaltender. It's an uncomfortable game, I think, for defense when guys get behind you. So yeah, I mean, I think the Flyers have been able to do that to opponents, and that's why. And like I said, I mean, had they had guys that could finish more regularly, their goals for would be up probably by either a quarter or to a half a goal.
Yeah, like the
a game.
3.1 range.
Yeah, you get to 3.1, 3.2, and all of a sudden, you're a team that's, instead of winning 1-goal games, now you're winning games by multiple goals. It makes a huge difference. But yeah, I think when you play that way, it definitely makes teams uncomfortable for sure.
When you play that way, there is, they are very risky in the offensive zone in the way they like to keep pucks in deep, pinching down the walls. And you will give up some odd man rushes the other way. But as you mentioned, goaltending has been good for this team. But the 1-goal games, Boosh, for goaltending is mentally tough because you got no margin. And they've gone into so many third periods tied or with a 1-goal lead. Is there a cumulative effect to that throughout a season?
Yeah. But also it hardens you, right? To be able to play those games when you get into the month of March, when those games matter a ton. You want to
every once in a while you want a rocking chair ride third period.
Yeah. I mean, you know how it is as a goalie too. Like sometimes an early lead is. I never liked when we got early leads as a goalie because I felt like subconsciously the group kind of sags a little bit. They don't defend with as much vigor. I don't think they're on their toes as much because they're protecting and they're playing it safe. And to me, safe is death. Then you start giving up chances just by being you're not being up on guys the way you normally would. So I always liked the game where it was a tight game because now you've got everybody's attention. Yeah, there's pressure, of course, but those pressure situations are what you need to be in the most important time of year to be comfortable in those uncomfortable situations. So yeah, it's nice to get some breathing room, some games for sure. There's no doubt, but I think for the most part, being comfortable playing in 1-goal games, that's we'll see what the Flyers are truly made up of as a group when we get to March. if they're still hanging in there and playing in those tight games, because now it's going to be less about the rush chances. It's going to be more about the grind game. And can they feel comfortable playing in those types of games where it's, the ice is a little bit harder to find?
That's a really good point. If you're a team that gets up in the first 10, 12 minutes of a game 2-0, the dichotomy of urgency is so different because the one team's playing with a 2-goal lead, the other team's going, we gotta score here. We got to get the next one to stay in this. So that's an interesting element that you bring up. Goaltending's been a strength. Obviously, Carter is no longer here right now, and it's Sam Ersson, and he's had a good year if you take out the first 3 games and maybe the last 3. Although I look at those last 3 and I'm going, what's a goalie to do in a spot like that? But talk about the difference from being the backup to now being the man, and you're in a playoff race, a very tight one.
Yeah, it is. It is a much different feeling, a much different pressure. I think, when you share the net and you're competing and you're the number 2 guy and, you're pushing the number 1 guy, every time you do well, it is bonus. It's like, nobody ever expected it, right? The expectations were not there for you to be doing this. So you play with a freeness to your game and excitement. Now, when you're the number 1 guy and you may not have somebody pushing you from underneath, now the expectations go from, well, if he gives us a great game, great. If not, no big deal. Not that it's no big deal, but you know what I mean? It's not the same expectation. Now when the expectation is to be a number 1, there's pressure. Whether you feel it externally or it's internal that you do it, there's pressure. And I always felt like when you look at the schedule, especially early on in the season, some of the toughest games to play for a number 1 guy is in the month of October, November, when the team is not dialed in structure-wise. And goaltenders do have to come up with wins where you save their bacon. And you look at the schedule and you see 82 games. It's a big schedule. It's a lot of pressure. Yeah. But as you get now towards after All-Star break, the team should be more dialed in with structure, with playing those tight games. It's not about guys getting their points. It's about getting wins. And for Ersson, the schedule is shorter now. It shouldn't be as daunting. I think he needed the break. I think he needed the All-Star break. I think it's been a crazy last couple of weeks, with everything that's going on. And I think everybody needed a mental reset. And I think that the break came at the right time. Would it have been better to go into the break with a couple of wins? Absolutely. But it is what it is. They're still inside the playoff picture. They're in good shape. I think they control their own destiny. And I think for a guy like Ersson, the schedule is shorter now. He's going to have everybody's full attention when the guys get back. And he's proven to me in the time that he's played so far this year that he can do the job and make the saves that are necessary in order for this team to have a chance to win. Those games heading into the All-Star break, you're right. I mean, I don't think a lot he could do on some of those. I mean, a lot of crazy deflections, not a lot of quantity. So those are difficult games to play as well because you're not seeing a lot of rubber. And then you give up a couple, the confidence can go away. The mental reset will be great for him, and I think this team will be focused when they get back.
Bush, let me ask you about one goal in particular that he let in, and that was the first goal Pasternak scored from Boston, and he shoots it through the legs of Sanheim. Yeah, and he just and there's no vision of the release. I mean, you couple this with David Pasternak, and it's long side off the bar and in. It's a perfect shot. But the difficulty for a goaltender when you don't see the puck off release and how much information that takes away from you.
Yeah, I mean, you don't see it. I mean, you're halfway beat already. You need a little bit of luck on your side sometimes when you don't see pucks. And I think on that one, you look at it's a shot from the outside. Everything should be okay, but he rips it through Sanheim's legs. I think for Sanheim on that one, he'd like to be gapped up a little better on Pastas to not allow him that shot. But then you could say, well, he's from the boards. I mean, how do you need to suppress him even more? Because if you get up on him, then he can beat you one-on-one. Fair point. There was also a drive-by screen that was coming by. I forget who it might have been Zaka who was driving with Drysdale. I think he was taking him to the near side post. And as the shot was coming, it was like you got a flyby screen. You got the shot through Sanheim. and then he puts it off the far post and in. I mean,
what are you going to
do? I mean, those are just you. I mean, you need a little luck there. Like you need it to go post and out, or you need it to miss the net, right? And if Pasta misses the net there, Zacha's trapped. Maybe Pasta's trapped, then maybe it goes around the wall and the Flyers are transitioning. Maybe those are the breaks that you get sometimes earlier in the season that you didn't get that afternoon. But yeah, I mean, you give Pasta time. I don't care where it's from. Even from there, he's dangerous.
Yeah, the guy came into the game with 240 shots on goal, like 16 more than the second guy in the league.
Yeah,
which I think was McKinnon. I mean, and there's a reason why he scores almost 60 every year, because he can do things like that.
Yep.
It's disgusting, frankly.
Yep. I will say, though, I did the game TNT on Wednesday, Carolina and Boston, and I thought Pasta had a bad game. Yeah. Like, he was so good against Boston, and then in that game against Carolina, I thought his execution was off. He couldn't catch a couple of passes, and they ended up changing the lines. He started on a line with Coyle and Marchand in that game, and Montgomery quickly switched in the second period and changed the lines up, and you can see they came in with Frederick on that top line with Coyle and Marchand, and had Zacha with Pastrnak. So he has games where he's off. You hope you catch him on a game where he's off, but very rare he's off against the Flyers. He seems to really love playing in Philadelphia.
Yeah, and over that calendar week, you get McKinnon, who comes in and just grabs the game by the throat and just, I mean, he was unbelievable in that game. 4 points. He's that, McKinnon's that power speedster. Then Kucherov plays the game at a snail's pace. He looks like he's just out there for a stroll, but just skills you to death. Mm-hmm. And he just lulls you to sleep and then just does something insane. And then you get Pastrnak. It's like three of the best players in the league that do it in three different ways. It's interesting in the way they all do it differently.
Yeah, and that's I think when you're looking at the schedule too, the Flyers had tough road trips in the first half of the year, right? They had to go west. They're pretty much done with it. The last time they go is to Chicago here in the next month or next couple of weeks, I think. So that's that was out of the way. But what we're seeing now is the teams in the East, the top teams in the East is what the Flyers have to face. So yeah, they're home and the time zones are good and the travel's good, but the quality of opponents is going up, and we saw it with Kucherov. And you're catching Tampa at a time when they're starting to. It's all about when you catch opponents too.
Yeah.
Right. You can say, we beat this team when you play them. Yeah. And they caught Colorado early on in the year, maybe where they were scuffling a little bit. They've been dealing with Edmonton for sure. But now you get on this side of it. This is when teams start to get dialed in, and the teams that have veteran experience and have been there before, they start to steady the ship and they get going. We saw that with Tampa, and Tampa's going to make the playoffs. They are going to make the playoffs, barring any unforeseen major injury to one of their big players. But Vasilevsky, it's taking a little bit of time. He's settling in. Kucherov's having an MVP year, and they've got all the supporting cast that have been there, done it before. So they'll be good, and the Flyers face them a couple more times, right? And then Florida, this team is they're tough to play. The Flyers got to play them 3 times here. So
Toronto
Boston,
too.
Yeah, Toronto. So this is a fun time of year. This is where you're going to see what this group is really made of. They've made significant strides. They've done a great job, but they've got some tough games up ahead here in the second half.
Last thing for you, Bouch. Danny took care of some business getting the Tippett deal done. It's an 8-year deal at 6.2 AAV, and as that salary cap ceiling rises, the percentage of cap is just going to keep going down over the 8 years. And then he also signs Ryan Poehling to the 2-year 1.9 AAV contract. Talk about the job that Danny's done along with Jonesy of finding the right direction for this team, executing on it, and we're going to see that at the deadline as well. And the job that they have done, kind of setting the stage and committing to this rebuild. Because I know Torts has talked about that quite a bit as well.
Yeah, I think they've done a really good job identifying the players that they see as fitting into the culture that they want to build here. Tippett is a guy that came over in the Giroux trade. Chuck Fletcher made that trade, and maybe his best work yet. I know G is still doing a good job in Ottawa. But the reality is you got a young player in Tippett who I think is just scratching the surface. And for the Flyers to get him at 6.2 a year, I think is really good work, to be honest with you. I really feel like Tippett is a 40-goal scorer in this league. And I don't say it to put pressure on the guy. But when you just watch the chances he gets night after night, it just has to happen. Like, I mean, he gets 5 or 6 chances a game, not shots, chances, you know? And to me, once those start dropping with regularity, it's going to be 35 to 40 goals, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's a great signing there. I think Ryan Poehling, another good signing, can play in your bottom six. He's got speed. He's got bite to his game. He's a responsible player. To me, and also he's young. Like he fits that mold of getting younger. That's what the Flyers want to do. They talk about building for the future. Those are two guys that you're building for the future with. And look, I think maybe the start to the season's kind of, maybe it's muddied the waters amongst fans as far as like, whoa, I thought we were rebuilding here, but I don't think the waters are muddy in the front office. I think they still have their eye on the prize and what they want to do. They understand that the future is what this team is all about. What they're doing right now, laying down the culture and knowing how to win and playing meaningful games. These are all great things for development. These players have to be in these situations, and Torts has done a good job of getting these guys prepared so that they can be in these situations and have success. How it plays out the rest of the year, we don't know. I mean, if they stub their toe down the stretch and falter, you still learn from those experiences. How can you be better? And I think Danny and Jonesy, they're going to do the right things come trade deadline in order to put this team in a position to keep acquiring assets, so that this team can build for the future, knowing that the best days are, 2 to 4 years down the road where this team is much more competitive on a regular basis.
Yeah, you use the word rebuild, and whenever people hear that, they assume the team has to stink to rebuild. Rebuild to me is how you conduct yourself and your approach to free agency, your approach to trades, your approach to roster building. It's not your approach to trying to win. I lied. Last thing. You played here under Ed Snyder. You were here a long time, and you've seen what has taken place under Dan Hilferty, Keith Jones, and Danny Briere. And to me, Bush, I said there's a lot of healing going on right now between the fans and the organization, and within the organization. It seems to have found its soul again. And the most symbolic thing for me is that the red line doesn't go through the logo at center ice anymore. This organization has found its moral compass again, hasn't it?
Yeah, it really has. And I had been away, since I retired, so I wasn't, around it on a daily basis, right? When you're doing national, you're not in it and see it all the time. You only see it from afar, and it just seemed to be slipping. And I think the fans got less and less engaged, less and less interested in a team that I thought always had great fan engagement. And I think the thing that Dan Hilferty and Keith Jones have tried to do here is to include the fans again into what they want to do. Is they're being transparent, right? They're engaging with the fans. You see, whether it's Jonesy or you see Dan Hilferty talking to fans, you're right. They are trying to heal and bring the fans back. And this is such a great fan base. This is such a great place to play. I experienced it in its best times. I really did. And I think some of these players that have played here in the last 5 years or so, they haven't experienced it at its best times. When you tell them this is a great place to play, they might say, yeah, it is, but, whatever. They might not feel the same way that I feel or felt when I played here. I'm telling you, there are great places to play in the league that are big hockey markets, that are original six. This is every bit as good when you get into the springtime and playing meaningful games here. This fan base loves their hockey. The expectations for the team to win were always there. I think it's lost its way in that regard. It will be back. And I really have full trust in Dan Hilferty and Keith Jones that they are doing the right things. They understand that we've got to re-identify with what we were in the past, that it has to be not what it was, like to the very word, but like the staples about work ethic, right? Sticking up for one another, playing hard, having, wearing that logo on your chest with pride. I think that has to come back. And it will be new age in the sense that there'll be skill, there'll be speed, all that meshed in with a lot of the what made you a Philadelphia Flyer before. To me, that's a winning formula. And I think fans will see with time that that's where this team is headed, and better days are ahead. And even though it was a bit of a dip, that'll be long forgotten when days are good here once again, because of the leadership of Dan Hilferty and Keith Jones and Danny Briere.
Yeah, that said perfectly. Boosh, thanks for doing this. Enjoy the break as best you can, the All-Star break and everything that goes with it, and crank it back up on February 6th. Thanks for doing this.
Yeah, you bet. I'll be. We got a TNT game. I don't know when this airs, but January 31st, Wednesday. We got LA, Nashville, and then I'm going skiing for the weekend. So
you're gonna be sore again.
Leave me alone. I'm going skiing, and then we get a week. Then the following weekend we got ESPN game. So I'm gonna go somewhere warm for the weekend, and then get back to work for real.
Boy, you got some gig going over
What a
there.
life, huh? What a life.
Not bad. All right, join us tomorrow. Another brand new Flyers Daily.